Life in New York had always been predictable. The days were filled with meetings, work, and the occasional weekend getaway to recharge. Everything in my life had been neatly ordered. I had a job that I loved, a wife whom I adored, and a future that seemed clear and without obstacles. Claire and I had been married for 8 years, and though we weren't perfect, we had built a life together, filled with routines, shared goals, and a sense of peace. The love we had was real, and I believed it would carry us through whatever came our way. But nothing could have prepared me for the events that would follow when I was assigned a project in Nigeria. It was meant to be a short trip, 6 months of work, and then back to the familiar comfort of our home. But I should have known better. Life doesn't just change on a whim. It shifts in ways you never see coming, and before you know it, you find yourself living in the wake of that change. It all started when I met her. Sandra, the woman who would pull me into a world I never intended to enter. A world of temptation, regret, and pain. The day I first met Sandra feels like a blur now, but I remember the moment with shocking clarity. The first time I saw Sandra was at a local cafe in Lagos. It wasn't the kind of place I would usually visit, loud, bustling with music and conversation. A blend of the city's chaotic energy and its vibrant culture. But that afternoon, I found myself there for a change of scenery, needing a break from the hotel room and the constant whirl of work. I had been in Nigeria for a few months, feeling isolated from my family back home, and I was looking for a temporary escape. Sandra was sitting at a corner table, her back to the wall, her laptop open in front of her. She was absorbed in whatever she was working on, but there was something about her presence that caught my attention. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, confident, unbothered by the noise around her, or maybe it was the way she had this calm energy about her in the middle of such a busy place. She didn't seem like she was trying to impress anyone, which was rare in a city like Lagos. I stood at the counter, waiting for my coffee, when I overheard a piece of her conversation with the barista. She was laughing, and the sound of it made me turn slightly, almost instinctively. I didn't know why, but something about the way she laughed seemed to invite others into her world. It was effortless, genuine, and it struck me in a way I hadn't expected. After I got my coffee, I moved to sit at a table nearby. My curiosity piqued. I kept glancing over at her, not in a way that felt intrusive but in a way that felt natural. The more I observed her, the more I felt this inexplicable pull. She had a warmth to her that made it hard not to notice. She wasn't stunning in the way that turned heads, but she had an allure that was undeniable. It wasn't just her looks. It was the way she made everything around her feel comfortable, like you wanted to know more about her. I didn't plan on talking to her, not at first, but fate, as it often does, had other plans. As I got up to leave, I accidentally knocked over my cup. Coffee splashed across the table, and some of it spilled onto her laptop. I felt like an idiot. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," I blurted out, rushing over to her side, embarrassed. She smiled up at me, not at all upset. "It's fine," she said, wiping the coffee off her laptop casually. "But you do owe me a drink now, don't you?" I laughed, embarrassed by my clumsiness. "I really do. I didn't mean to. I'm a little out of it today." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Out of it? You don't look it. But since you've offered, I'll take that drink." I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should invite her or just apologize and leave. There was something about her that made me want to stay. Maybe it was the way she was unfazed by the situation, or maybe it was just that I felt a connection I couldn't explain. "Okay, I'll make it up to you. I'll buy you a drink," I said, taking a seat across from her. "I'm Paul, by the way." "Sandra," she replied, giving me a warm smile. We spent the next hour chatting about nothing in particular. Work, Lagos life, random stories from our past. She was easy to talk to, and that alone was surprising to me. I had been in Nigeria for months, yet I hadn't felt this kind of natural, easygoing connection with anyone. Our conversation didn't feel forced. We talked like old friends despite having just met. As time passed, I realized how easy it was to open up to her. I mentioned my wife back home, not in a way that felt like an excuse, but more like a passing detail in the course of the conversation. Sandra didn't seem bothered by it. She simply nodded and continued the conversation as if it didn't matter. When I stood up to leave, she casually remarked, "You're always welcome to join me for coffee, Paul. As long as you don't spill it on my laptop next time." I smiled, my heart beating a little faster than I cared to admit. "I'll be more careful, I promise." Over the next few weeks, I found myself at that same cafe more often, almost as if by chance. And each time Sandra was there, we would catch up, talk about the ups and downs of life, and share stories that felt intimate. Even though we had just met, it didn't feel like an affair. It felt like something simple, something easy. I never planned to cross that line, and yet, the line seemed to blur with every conversation. Sandra didn't pressure me. She never made any moves to push our connection further. But there was a subtle invitation in the way she looked at me, in the way she would laugh at my jokes, in the way she would share a part of herself that made me feel special. She made me feel like I mattered in ways I hadn't felt in a long time. One evening, after a particularly long week of work, I found myself sitting across from her at the cafe again. The chemistry between us had always been present, but tonight it was different. There was something unspoken in the air. The way she smiled at me, the way her eyes lingered just a bit longer than usual. "So, how's life in Lagos treating you?" she asked, leaning back in her chair. I laughed, feeling the tension building between us. "It's been an adjustment, but it's getting better. You make it easier, actually." Her lips curled into a knowing smile. "I make it easier? How?" You're easy to talk to," I said, suddenly self-conscious. "I don't know what it is. I just feel comfortable around you." Her smile softened, and then, without warning, she leaned closer. "I'm glad you feel that way, Paul," she said in a quieter tone. The shift in energy was immediate. There was no turning back now. I didn't want to, not really. I wanted to believe that I could keep things casual, but with every glance, every shared laugh, it became harder to ignore what was happening between us. And then, without thinking, I found myself kissing her. After that first kiss, everything changed. It wasn't a reckless moment, but one filled with an undeniable intensity, as though all the tension that had been building between us had finally been released. The boundaries I had carefully built between my marriage and this flirtation with Sandra began to blur, and I found myself unable to turn back. The next few days felt different. I went through my workday as usual, but my mind kept wandering back to her. The way she smiled, the way her fingers lightly brushed mine when we exchanged coffee cups. I had told myself it would be a one-time thing, a moment of weakness, but deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. We began meeting regularly. At first, it was innocent coffee dates, casual lunches, but the connection between us grew deeper, more intense. Sandra had this ability to make everything feel thrilling, even the mundane things. We talked about everything. Our dreams, our fears, our childhoods. And the more I got to know her, the more I felt like I was discovering a version of myself I had long neglected. She never once made me feel like I was a married man. There was no judgment, no pressure. It was as if she had created a world where my commitments didn't exist. And maybe that's what I was drawn to, the escape from the responsibilities of my life back home. Felt easier to just be with her, to forget about everything else. But with every meeting, every stolen kiss, my internal conflict grew. Guilt gnawed at me, reminding me that I was betraying my wife, Claire, the woman who trusted me. Yet, I pushed that feeling aside each time I was with Sandra. When we were together, the guilt faded into the background, replaced by an overwhelming desire for her. She became my escape, the breath of fresh air I didn't know I needed. Weeks passed, and the affair deepened. We began sneaking around more. Late-night dinners at hidden restaurants, walks by the beach after work, secret messages late into the night. I told myself that it wasn't serious, that it was just a temporary thing, that it wasn't affecting my marriage. But I was lying to myself. One evening, I found myself at Sandra's apartment, alone with her. The tension was electric, and for the first time, I felt like I was no longer in control. She opened a bottle of wine, and we talked for hours, the conversation flowing effortlessly as it always did. But this time, there was something different in the air, a heaviness that neither of us could ignore. As the night wore on, we grew closer. We both knew what was coming, yet neither of us said anything. There were no more words, just the soft sound of our breathing and the quiet anticipation that filled the space between us. Then, without another word, she kissed me again. But this time, it was deeper, more desperate. It wasn't just a kiss anymore. It was the culmination of everything we'd been building up to. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was crossing a line I could never uncross. But I couldn't stop. There was something in the way she touched me, in the way she made me feel like I was the only person in the world that mattered. It was intoxicating. And for that brief moment, I let go of all the consequences, all the guilt, all the fear. We made love that night, passionately, urgently, as if we were trying to make up for lost time. In that moment, nothing else mattered. My marriage, my wife, my commitments, they all seemed distant, like they were a world away. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something real, something that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. But the next morning, the weight of what I had done hit me with full force. The guilt was suffocating. I couldn't look at Sandra the same way. We didn't speak much over breakfast. She seemed completely unbothered, but I could feel the difference in my chest. The ache that came from knowing I had crossed a line I could never go back from. The guilt was overwhelming, but in some twisted way, I also felt a strange sense of relief. But as much as I tried to rationalize it, I knew I had broken something that couldn't be fixed. After that night, the affair didn't slow down. If anything, it grew stronger. Sandra didn't pressure me for anything more than what we had. She was content to be in the moment, to enjoy the time we spent together without any expectations. It was clear that she enjoyed the secrecy, the thrill of having something forbidden. And while part of me felt like I was living in a fantasy, another part of me craved the moments we shared. Yet, every time I left her apartment, every time I walked away from those stolen moments, the guilt would hit me like a wave. I would think of Claire, of how she was back home, believing in the man she married, trusting me to honor the vows we made. I would picture her smiling, planning for the future we were supposed to build together, and it would tear me apart inside. But the next time Sandra called, or the next time we met for coffee, the pull of the affair would be too strong. It was as if the emotional highs of being with her wiped away the guilt, if only for a few hours. The affair became a cycle, a moment of pleasure followed by deep regret, which was then followed by the same pleasure again. I knew I couldn't keep living this way, but every time I tried to distance myself from Sandra, she would find a way to pull me back in, with her charm, her wit, and that magnetic energy she had that made it impossible to say no. Eventually, things started to spiral out of control. The affair wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a part of me. Every conversation with Claire, every moment of tenderness I tried to share with her, felt hollow. I was no longer the man I had been before. I was torn between two worlds. The life I had built with my wife and the escape I found in Sandra. One evening, after another passionate rendezvous with Sandra, I found myself sitting alone in my hotel room, looking at the phone in my hand. I had just sent Sandra a message, apologizing for being distant. The guilt weighed heavily on me as I sat there, realizing that the man I had become was unrecognizable. And then it hit me. This affair, this secret life I had been living, wasn't just a betrayal to Claire. It was a betrayal to myself. I had let my desires take over my better judgment, and now I was on the verge of losing everything that truly mattered to me. It started with a little discomfort. At first, it was nothing too alarming, just a slight irritation, a sensation that didn't quite feel right. I dismissed it, told myself it was nothing, that I'd probably just overworked myself or had some sort of minor infection. I kept telling myself that I had nothing to worry about. After all, I had been careful, hadn't I? But the discomfort lingered, growing slowly worse over time. It became a dull, nagging pain that wouldn't go away. At first, it was just when I urinated, a stinging feeling that made me wince. Then, it was a persistent ache in my lower abdomen, something that made me feel uneasy every time I moved. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just stress or exhaustion from the demanding work schedule in Lagos. But soon, the pain became unbearable, and that's when the panic set in. I could no longer pretend it was just a minor issue. Something was wrong. It was time to face it. I made an appointment with a local doctor, but even as I sat in the sterile, white-walled clinic waiting for the test results, I tried to convince myself it was just a normal infection. Maybe it was a urinary tract infection or something easily treated. There was no reason to assume it was anything serious. The doctor, a calm, professional woman, asked me questions, checked my symptoms, and after some time, she sent me for a series of tests. When I returned to the office for the results, my heart was pounding in my chest, my palms sweaty. I had been waiting for a few days, not knowing what to expect, but knowing in the pit of my stomach that something was wrong. When she finally sat me down, I could tell from her expression that she wasn't about to sugarcoat it. "You have chlamydia," she said, her voice firm yet compassionate. "It's a bacterial infection, and if untreated, it can cause serious complications. In your case, it's spread to your epididymis, and that's why you're experiencing the pain." I froze. Chlamydia? The word echoed in my ears, but I couldn't quite process it at first. I had always been careful, or so I thought. I had never imagined I could be so careless, so reckless. My mind immediately went to Sandra. My stomach sank as the reality of the situation hit me. "How did this happen?" I asked, the words barely leaving my lips. I was careful. How could this happen? The doctor explained that chlamydia could be asymptomatic for some time, meaning I could have been infected and not known it. But I knew deep down where I had contracted it from. Sandra. I left the doctor's office in a daze, my mind racing, my body feeling numb. The diagnosis felt like a punch to the gut. I had always been careful in the past, never straying, always thinking that my commitment to Claire was solid. And now I was paying the price for my foolishness. It's a warm, humid afternoon in Lagos. I've been walking around for hours, my thoughts a constant whirlwind of anger, guilt, and confusion. I'm now standing outside her apartment building, knowing I'm about to face the one person who single-handedly turned my life upside down. I keep telling myself that this is necessary, that I need answers. But deep down, I'm also terrified. Terrified of the truth. Terrified of what this confrontation could turn into. As I ring the doorbell, the seconds feel like minutes. She opens the door with a look of surprise, but not the kind I expected. No guilt, no fear. It's the look of someone who knows they've already won, who thinks they have all the control. "Hey," she says, her voice light, too light. "I wasn't expecting you." "Yeah, I bet," I reply, my tone colder than I intend. "We need to talk." She steps aside, letting me into the apartment, and I notice how everything is so neat, so perfectly put together. It's almost like she's been waiting for this moment, knowing I'd show up sooner or later. The silence between us is thick, suffocating. As I stand there, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You know why I'm here, right?" I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. She looks at me, unfazed. "I'm assuming this is about what happened with us." I nod. "You knew I was married. You knew the risks. And now, because of you, I'm damaged." My voice cracks for the first time. I hadn't expected it to come out so raw. Feels like a weight is pressing on my chest, and I can't stop it. Her face remains neutral, but I can see a flicker of something. Regret? Maybe? Or is it just irritation that I'm blaming her for something she doesn't think was her fault? "I didn't make you do anything, you know?" she says, folding her arms across her chest. "You could have left at any time. You weren't forced into this. But you gave me chlamydia. You gave me an STD. And now I can't even have kids." I shout, my voice rising despite myself. The anger I've been holding in for so long finally erupts. My life, my future, my family, all of it, destroyed. You took that from me. She looks at me for a moment, the silence growing between us. She opens her mouth to say something, but I don't let her speak. "You never thought about that, did you?" I continue. "You didn't think about the fact that I was married, or that I wanted children, or that I might lose everything because of you. You just did what you wanted without a single thought about the consequences. Now look at me. Look at what you've done. There's a long pause, and I can see the tension in her face. For a moment, I think she's going to apologize, but instead, she says, "It's not my fault you couldn't be more careful. I didn't make you stay with me, did I?" I stare at her, incredulous. "You don't get it, do you? I trusted you. I trusted you when you knew exactly what you were doing. You knew I was married and yet you still infected me. You took that choice away from me." She doesn't respond immediately, but I can see a hint of guilt behind her eyes now, a crack in her armor. "Is there anything you want to say?" I ask, my voice softer now, quieter, like the rage has been drained out of me. "Anything at all?" She hesitates, then looks down at the floor. For a moment, I think she's going to admit she made a mistake, apologize, even offer some kind of explanation. Then she looks back up at me, and I see the coldness in her eyes. "I don't owe you anything," she says, her voice now steady. "You made your choices, and so did I. If you want to blame me for your problems, then fine. But you're the one who came here. Remember." I feel the weight of her words, the finality in her tone. This isn't the confrontation I imagined. It wasn't some dramatic showdown where I could finally get the revenge I thought I deserved. No, this was just reality, cold and unforgiving. The door slams behind me as I leave her apartment. I'm standing in the hallway, my chest tight, my heart pounding. The anger that had fueled me just moments ago has dissipated, replaced by an emptiness that makes me feel hollow. I thought I'd get some sense of closure from confronting her, but instead, I'm left with nothing but regret and sorrow. As I step outside, the hot Lagos air feels suffocating. The world around me spins, and for a moment, I wish I could just vanish into it, leave everything behind. But I can't. I can't escape what's been done, and I can't undo the damage. As I sat in my car, staring blankly at the steering wheel, a wave of dread washed over me. The thoughts came crashing in all at once. The affair, Sandra, the lies, the betrayal, and now this irreversible damage. My thoughts then shifted to Claire. She had been planning our future, dreaming about having children. What was I going to tell her now? How was I going to explain this? How was I going to look her in the eye and tell her that I had been unfaithful, that I had betrayed her trust in the most damaging way possible? The guilt hit me harder than ever. My once vibrant future felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I had destroyed the one thing I had promised to protect. The future I had envisioned with Claire, building a family, having children, we might never have that now. Not because of some accident, but because of my own reckless decisions. I had been selfish, and now I was paying the price. I tried to gather my thoughts, but they kept spiraling. What if the damage was worse than I thought? What if I couldn't have children? What if this was just the beginning of a long, painful road? The fear crept in, slow and steady. The doctor had warned me that the infection could have lasting effects. It wasn't just about the immediate pain anymore. It was about my future. My ability to have children, something I had always taken for granted, might be gone. I thought about Claire again, imagining her face when I would tell her. I had been planning to keep the secret, to protect her from this devastating truth. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. She deserved to know the truth. I had already hurt her enough with my infidelity. Now, I was about to destroy her in a way I never thought possible. When I finally return home, the house feels foreign. It's too quiet, too still. I find her in the living room, sorting through a pile of baby clothes she's excited about. She looks up and smiles, that familiar warmth I've always cherished. It should make me feel comforted, but instead, it intensifies the ache in my chest. "Hey, how was your trip?" she asks, her eyes sparkling. She has no idea what I've been through, no idea that our world is about to shatter. I sit down across from her, my palms sweaty, my heart racing. I know I can't keep hiding this. It's eating me alive. I look at her, and for the first time I feel the full weight of what I've done. She's sitting there, full of hope and love, while I'm about to crush all of it with a single confession. I need to tell you something. I start, my voice barely a whisper. Something happened while I was away in Nigeria. Something that's going to change everything. Her smile fades slightly, concern crossing her face. She puts the clothes down, her attention fully on me now. What is it? She asks, her voice gentle but tinged with curiosity. I swallow hard. This is it. The moment of truth. I was unfaithful. I say, each word like a weight dropping into the pit of my stomach. I had an affair with a woman I met while I was in Nigeria, and I contracted chlamydia. I didn't know it at the time, but it's affected me. My sperm count is low now. The doctor says I might not be able to have kids. Her face goes pale, her hands trembling slightly as she pulls them into her lap. I can see the confusion, the hurt, the disbelief in her eyes. It's like the air has been sucked out of the room. I feel like I'm suffocating. I'm so sorry, I say, my voice cracking. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was selfish, and now I've ruined everything. She doesn't say anything at first. She just stares at me, as if processing what I've just said. I feel her pain in the silence, and it cuts deeper than anything the woman in Nigeria could ever make me feel. After what feels like an eternity, she finally speaks. I don't even know what to say, she says, her voice barely audible. You betrayed me. You put everything we've worked for at risk. And now, you've taken away our dream of having children together. Do you understand how much this hurts? Tears well up in her eyes, and I can't hold back my own. I've never seen her so broken, and it's all because of me. I want to reach out, to take her in my arms and tell her everything will be okay. But I know I don't have that right anymore. I've shattered her trust beyond repair. I know, I say quietly, I know I can't fix this, but I want to try. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. I don't want to lose you. She shakes her head, her lips trembling. I need time, she says. I need space to think about this. I don't know if I can forgive you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I never expected forgiveness to come easily, but hearing it from her makes the weight of my actions hit me all over again. The days that follow are filled with an uncomfortable silence. My wife, Claire, moves through the house as if I don't exist. She speaks to me in short, clipped sentences. I can see the hurt in her eyes every time she looks at me. It's the kind of pain that cuts deep, a wound that no amount of apologies can heal immediately. I try to bridge the gap by doing little things. I wash the dishes, clean up after myself, offer her help with the baby items she has been preparing. I feel her distance, but I also know that words alone won't mend what I've broken. All I can do is give her space, let her process everything in her own way. One night after dinner, we're sitting on the couch together, not speaking, yet somehow sharing the same air. I look at her, watching her carefully, and I realize how much I've taken her for granted. I see the strong, independent woman I married, now looking fragile, her hope for the future shattered. I want to reach out to her, but I don't know if I should. I'm afraid of pushing too hard, of suffocating her with my regret. Claire breaks the silence first. I've been thinking, she says, her voice quiet, measured. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, but I also know that you're not the same man you were when you left for Nigeria. You've changed. I see it. My heart skips a beat. This is the first time she's acknowledged my attempts to grow, to become a better person. It's a small opening, but it's enough to make me believe that maybe, just maybe, there's hope for us. I will do anything to earn back your trust. I say, my voice shaky but firm. Anything. I've hurt you in ways I can't even explain, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I love you, and I've never stopped loving you. Claire looks at me, her face unreadable, her words laced with pain but also a touch of vulnerability. I need time, and I need to see that you're truly committed to this. We both have to heal, but I don't know what that looks like yet. I don't know if I can forgive you. Not now. But I'm willing to try. For us. For the future. Her words, though tentative, give me a glimmer of hope. It's not the forgiveness I had hoped for immediately, but it's a step in the right direction. She's willing to try, and that's all I can ask for right now. I've lost so much, but this small moment of understanding, of recognition, is everything. It means we have a chance. Over the next few weeks, Claire and I go through the motions of rebuilding. It's not easy. The days are long, filled with moments of silence, but also occasional shared laughter. Those brief moments where it feels like we're reconnecting. I attend therapy not just for the relationship, but for myself as well. I'm learning that the anger I had towards the side chick, towards myself, was only a defense mechanism. The truth is, I was scared. Scared of facing the consequences of my actions. Scared of being honest about the deep-rooted pain that led me to betray my wife. I start to understand that this isn't just about the affair. It's about me. About my insecurities. About how I never took the time to communicate my fears, my desires, my needs. It was easier to hide behind the excitement of something new, something forbidden. But in doing so, I lost sight of what truly mattered. Claire and I have conversations that I never imagined we'd have. The walls that once stood between us begin to crumble, piece by piece. She shares her fears with me. How she felt invisible during my time away. How her hopes for starting a family have been shattered, and how much she feels betrayed. It's painful to hear, but it's also necessary. This raw honesty between us is what we need to rebuild. Every day, I show her through my actions that I am committed to making things right. I call her during the day just to check in, I listen more attentively when she speaks, and I make it a point to tell her how much I appreciate her. The small, sometimes mundane actions, but they start to add up. I couldn't undo the damage I had done, but I could learn from it. I could grow. And maybe, just maybe, Claire and I could find our way back to each other. It wasn't the life I had imagined, but it was a life I could live with. A life I would rebuild, piece by piece, with time, effort, and the hope that one day we would find peace.